What if Neo was in MHA? Chapter 6. The Calm Before the Storm. Izuku and Neo were making their way home from UA. Izuku was in a very good mood due to today's training and Cinder's reward. Neo however wasn't in such a good mood. Trivia, are you alright? You've been down ever since the battle training. Did I hurt your pride by defeating you? Izuku asked. Neo shook her head. You still haven't heard from Roman, have you? Izuku asked. Neo didn't respond at first, but then she shook her head. I'm sure he's alright. Trivia. He's avoided the heroes dozens of times before. I'm sure he can do it again, Izuku said. Neo smiled at Izuku. Now come on, that hero training really worked up an appetite, I'm starving, Izuku said. Izuku began to run off ahead. Neo's face then fell. She hated lying to Izuku, but she didn't want to let him know that she saw him and Cinder making out. She quickly put her fake smile back on and ran after Izuku. Hours later everyone was asleep in the Midoriya household. All except Neo. Neo was preparing to head out to Roman's new hideout. He had told her that she was expected to be there, and that Cinder would also be there, and she hated that, but she had to go along with it. Neo entered Izuku's room. She was surprised to see that Izuku was nude. Thankfully his crotch was covered. Neo then walked up to Izuku. She looked over him, before leaning in and kissing him on the lips. Mine, Neo signed. Neo then noticed a light coming from Izuku's phone. She picked it up to see a picture from Cinder. She was wearing a red dress, but had the top half down, though she was covering her chest with her left arm. In her right hand, she had a small flame. Neo could also see that Cinder wasn't wearing underwear. There was also a message. Getting ready for bed. Hope to have sweet dreams about you, I hope you do too, about me, Cinder said. This royally pissed off Neo. Neo then blocked and removed Cinder from Izuku's contacts. Neo then put his phone down and headed to the window. She opened it and climbed out. She then jumped, using Hush to slow her fall. She then began to make her way to Roman's new hideout, which was a long way away. A couple hours later Neo had arrived at the new hideout. Welcome to our new home. Trivia. Perfect timing really, considering what happened, Roman said. Neo's face fell. Sadly, that's what happens when you wait too long to confess. Someone else comes and steals your man, Roman said. Oh, I didn't steal anyone, Cinder said, entering the hideout. She was wearing all black, with a mask on her face. You said it yourself. You two weren't dating, Cinder said. Well, despite being mute, Neo says a lot of things she doesn't mean. She very much likes that boy, Roman said. I could tell, considering she ran off when she saw her man kissing me and removed me from his contacts, Cinder said. Neo was surprised that Cinder knew that, and then got angry. Oh, don't act so surprised. That boy would have never done that. But anyways, I didn't steal him from you, we're not a thing, yet. So you still have time, and I don't mind sharing. But when you get back, you better fix what you've done. Or you won't be able to see him, ever again, Cinder said. Neo then backed off. As much as she hated Cinder, she didn't want to lose Izuku. Now, you better change. We're meeting some associates, and would prefer to have our identities kept secret, for now, Cinder said. Neo then transformed into Mint. Where's my costume? Roman asked. Please, you're way too famous for a digs. And anyway, he should be here, right about, Cinder said. A black mist then appeared. Now, Cinder said. We're ready for you, the mist said. Cinder then walked towards the mist, followed by Roman and Neo. The three entered the mist and now found themselves in a bar. Sitting at the bar was a man with light blue hair and hands all over his body. Welcome to our bar, could I get you anything? The mist asked, now taking on a more human form and looking like a bartender. No. we're only here for business, Cinder said. Very well. Tamura, our guests have arrived, the mist said. Is it true? Is it true that All Might is now a teacher at UA? Tamura asked. Indeed. He was our hero course instructor today. He was so obnoxious, Cinder said. What do you think will happen if the symbol of peace is killed by villains? Tamura asked. You want to kill All Might? You'd have to be insane to try. Do you know how many villains have tried and failed? Roman said. Tamura stood up from his stool. I'd watch my mouth if I was you. Unless you want to become scattered ashes, Tamura said. Neo pulled her blade out and pointed it at Tamura. Tamura. I suggest you don't antagonize them. Master would be very displeased if things ended poorly between us, the mist said. Fine, Kurogiri, Tamura said. Roman, Mint. Stand down, Cinder said. Roman and Neo did so. Your subordinates are well kept in line, a voice from a monitor said. You must be all for one. You couldn't come and meet us in person? Cinder asked. Sadly no. All Might has made it so. Even after so many years, I'm still recovering, All for One said. So, is that why you reached out to my master? You need help in killing All Might? Cinder asked. Salem's help won't be necessary for us to kill All Might. I have created the anti-symbol of peace. He should be able to kill All Might, All for One said. Then what do you want? Cinder asked. Creating this weapon took a lot of time and effort. And knowing what Salem can do, I was hoping she would help in creating more, All Might said. Well, we would need to see a test run. Salem doesn't approve a failure, and if this weapon is a dud, the punishment would fall on me, Cinder said. You doubt our weapon? Tamura asked. Actions speak louder than words after all, Cinder said. Very well. If this weapon impresses you, I believe we could create a beneficial partnership. Cinder for All for One said. Of course, you know who I am, Cinder said, removing her mask. So, how do you plan to use this weapon? If it's the anti-symbol of peace, I don't want to be around when you let it off its leash, Roman asked. We plan to set it loose somewhere All Might is alone, with students of UA. This would be the perfect opportunity to strike against All Might and UA. Very well. What do you have planned? Cinder asked. We plan to steal lesson plans to see when and where we can unleash the anti-symbol of peace. With All Might now confirmed to be working at UA, we can use the press to create a distraction for us to move, All for One said. I see. I'll have one of my subordinates help you out. There are already 4 of us at UA, including myself, Cinder said. The help is appreciated, All for One said. The two then talked more before Kurogiri walked them back. Master, who is this Salem? Tamura asked. Oh, geez. She's my counterpart, you could say, All for One said. All for One then began to think. All for One said. What is it, Master? Kurogiri asked. That other girl with them. I didn't recognize her, All for One said. You want us to find out who she is? She may be one who's at UA with her, Tamura said. That won't be necessary. We should show a little trust in our prospective partners, All for One said. Cinder, Neo and Roman were now back in their hideout. Roman, you best get the White Fang in order for when this plan happens. We need them to distract the students, Cinder said. Are the students that powerful? Roman asked. Some of them. The son of Endeavour especially, Cinder said. Oh, and you better make sure they don't hurt Izuku, Cinder said. I'll do what I can, but if that boy attacks them, I doubt they'll follow my orders, Roman said. That's fine. Isn't it, Cinder said. Neo nodded. She hated the idea of putting Izuku in danger, but she knew the consequence if she warded him. Good, Cinder said. Well, if we are done here, you two best get some sleep, it's almost morning, Roman said. Very well, Cinder said. Cinder then left the hide. Trivia. Do you want to stay with Izuku? Or do you want to stay here? Roman asked. Neo chose to stay with Izuku. Neo arrived back Izuku's apartment, climbing through the same window she left through. She was very exhausted. Neo added Cinder back into Izuku's phone before she began to strip as she headed to the sofa in the living room. She was down to be only wearing her panties and then flopped down on the sofa and passed out. It was now morning. Izuku woke up to find a trail of Neo's clothes along the floor. At first he thought that things had gotten intimate between him and Neo last night, but he realized that Neo wasn't in his bed and that Neo's shoes were the things closest to his bed. Izuku got out of bed and put his nightwear on. Izuku then entered the living room and saw Neo pass out, face upon the sofa only in her panties. Izuku blushed seeing Neo's exposed chest. He quickly picked up her hoodie and covered her chest. Izuku then headed into the bathroom to wash up, though he didn't see Inko, who had seen it all. A few minutes later Neo woke up the smell of breakfast. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Tired from yesterday's hero training?" Inko asked. Neo nodded. "Well, why don't you have a cold shower? That should wake you up," Inko said. Neo nodded. She then walked to the bathroom, leave her hoodie behind. Neo was about to open the door, when it opened. Standing there was Izuku, who was only in a towel. The two stared at each other. They both went red in the face. Neo covered her chest whilst Izuku slammed the door. "Oh, must have forgotten that Izuku was in there." "Whoops," Inko said. Neo could tell Inko was lying. After calming down, Neo and Izuku were able to get ready and headed to UA. Though they didn't say anything to each other as they made their way to UA. As they arrived, they saw a bunch of reporters at the front gate of UA, asking about All Might. It was very difficult for students to get into UA, and many of them were pestered by the reporters. Izuku and Neo managed to make it through the reporters. Soon enough Aizawa came out. "Can you tell me about All Might?" "Wow, you're scruffy. What's your deal?" a reporter asked. "He's not on duty today. You are disturbing the classes, please leave," Aizawa said. "I would like to speak directly with All Might," a reporter said. "I feel like I've seen him before," a cameraman said. "Don't you think you're too scruffy?" a reporter asked. "I can't believe All Might was able to work as a hero with all this," Aizawa thought. "Hey. Let me see All Might just for a little," a reporter said. Aizawa then walked away. "Just a little time is fine. Just let me see All Might," a reporter said, trying to follow after him. The UA barrier then activated, sealing off the gate. "What the reporter said. "It's the UA barrier. If someone tries to get in without a student ID or a pass to enter, the security system kicks in. Apparently, there are sensors all over the school," a cameraman said. "They think they are so high and mighty. They could at least give a brief comment," the reporter said. Across the street in was a skinny man with blue hair. "Good work on yesterday's combat training. I saw the video and results. Bakuga. You're talented, so don't act like a kid," Aizawa said. "I know," Bakugo said. "Now let's get down to homeroom business. Sorry about the late notice, but today, I'll have you," Aizawa said. Class 1A began to worry about what Aizawa had in store for them. "Decide on a class representative," Aizawa said. "It's actually a normal school activity," the students said. "I want to be class rep." "Pick me," Kirishima said. "Me too," Kaminari said. The students then devolved into why they should be class rep. "Silence, please. It is a job with the serious responsibility of leading others. It is not a job for just anyone who wants to do it. It is a calling that requires the trust of those around you. If we want to use democracy to decide on a true leader, then we should hold an election to choose one," Tenya said. "Why did you suggest that? We haven't known each other for that long, so how can we have trust or anything?" Zero asked. If that's the case, and everyone votes for themselves, Ajue said. Don't you think that is precisely why whoever receives multiple votes here can be truly considered the most suitable person? What do you think, Mr. Aizawa Tenure asked. I don't care, as long as you decide before homeroom is over, Aizawa said. Thank you very much, Tenure said. After all the votes were cast, Ijuku became class representative with 5 votes, and Cinder became vice representative with 3 votes. I got 5 votes, Ijuku asked. Why Deku? Who voted for him, Bakugo asked. Well, it's better than voting for you, Kaminari said. What did you say, Bakugo yelled. Then, the class rep is Midoriya, and the deputy class rep will be Fall, Aizawa said. Classes then began and soon lunchtime arrived. Ijuku, Neo, Cinder, Eureka and Tenure were all sat together. Even though I've been chosen as class rep, I don't know if I'm qualified for it, Ijuku said. You most definitely are, Cinder said. You'll be fine, Eureka said. Your courage and judgment at critical moments make you worth following. That is why I voted for you, Tenure said. It was you, Ijuku asked. But didn't you want to be class rep, too, Tenure, Eureka asked. Wanting to do it and being suitable for it are different issues. I merely did what I judged to be correct, Tenure said. That's also the reason why I voted for you, Cutie Cinder said, causing Deku to blush. You voted for me as well, Deku asked. So did I, Eureka said. Neo smiled at Ijuku. You two both also voted for me, Ijuku asked. Yep. But who did you vote for? You didn't vote for yourself, right? Eureka asked. I voted for Cinder, Ijuku said. Oh. I'm flattered, Ijuku, Cinder said. The 5 continued talking, finding out that Tenure was rich and that his family was a family of heroes. Suddenly an alarm went off. An alarm, Tenure asked. There has been a level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate outdoors promptly, I repeat, an announcement said. What's level 3 security, Tenure asked. It means someone is trespassing on school grounds. I've never seen anything like this in the 3 years I've been here. You should hurry, too, a student said. The whole student body was now trying to exit the cafeteria, pushing and shoving each other around. Tenure was able to make his way to the windows overlooking the front entrance. Who in the world trespassed? That's the press. Everyone, calm, Tenure said, but was cut off. Cinder and Ijuku were pushed into the window. Ah, Ijuku, Cinder. It's only the press. It's just the press, Tenure said. Right. Ijuku, hold me up, Cinder said. Cinder then climbed on Ijuku's shoulders. Everyone, everything is fine. It is just the media. There is nothing to panic about. Everything is fine, Cinder said. This calmed the students down and soon the hallway began to clear. Like the view, Cinder said. I didn't look. I promise, Ijuku said. Cinder laughed. Mind helping me down, Cinder asked. Ijuku did so. Cinder moved forward off Ijuku's shoulders. Ijuku caught her legs before she hit the ground and then let her legs slide through his hands. Now his hands were on her weight below her skirt. You can keep your hands there if you want, Cinder said, causing Ijuku to blush, and Neo to get angry. Meanwhile, Tamura and Emerald were in the faculty room. There it is, Emerald said. Take and get out of here before the teachers get back, Emerald said. Don't order me around, Tamura said. Don't get caught, Emerald said. Kurogiri, Tamura said. Kurogiri then appeared and wrapped Tamura away. Emerald quickly left the faculty room. Class 1 were now back in class. For today's hero basic training it's turned into a class with 3 instructors, All Might and me, and 1 more person, Aizawa said. Excuse me. What will we be doing, Zero asked. Disasters, shipwrecks, and everything in between. It's rescue training. You can decide if you want to wear your costume or not this time. Because there are probably costumes that limit your abilities, too. The training will take place off campus, so we're taking a bus. That is all. Start getting ready, Aizawa said. The students then got ready and boarded the bus. Cinder and Neo were sat on both sides of Izuku. During their bus ride the topic of quirks came up and who would be a popular hero. Soon the bus arrived at their destination. We're here. Stop messing around, Aizawa said. Yes, sir, the students said. Class 1A exited the bus. Everyone, I have been waiting for you, 13 said. It's the space hero, 13. The gentlemanly hero who has rescued tons of people from disasters, Izuku said. Oh, I love 13. Eureka said. Let's go inside without delay, 13 said. The class then walked into a large building called the USJ. The Welcome to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short. It is a training ground that I made with different types of accidents and disasters, 13 said. 13, where's All Might? He was supposed to meet us here, Aizawa asked. About that. It looks like he did too much hero work on his way to work and ran out of time, so he's resting in the lounge, 13 whispered. Izuku and Neo managed to overhear 13, and so did Cinder. Let's see. Before we begin, let me say one thing, or two. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13 said. 13 then explained the purpose of their lesson. It was to train them in rescue work, but also to teach them that their quirks could easily cause harm if not careful. A purple mist then formed in the middle of the USJ, and a bunch of villains appeared from the mist. Many of them had masks and a uniform, with a symbol with a red wolf with 3 slash marks. Cool, we even get to fight fake villains, Kirishima said. Those aren't fake villains. Gather together and don't move, this is not a training exercise anymore. 13, protect the students, Aizawa said. Aizawa then prepared to fight. End of chapter 6.